Welcome everybody, thanks for joining us. So what we want to look at today is new features in 2018, and we'll discuss some of the functional and general system enhancements. Some of them we'll show on screen and some of them we'll talk about, and I've got screens available to show you what that functionality will be doing, as well as we said, jumping into the product itself to see how some of this functionality works in the product. We'll then go to a Q&A where you're welcome to ask us any questions, and we'll discuss some of those questions you have, as well as put you in touch with some of our account managers in your various regions that you can have further conversations with if you'd like to get in touch with us. Okay, so let's get started. So NAV 2018. So there's been kind of progressive improvements all the way across NAV, as we know, but 2018 seems to be a really good product and a good platform for Microsoft, because we're starting to sort of really see a lot of the extensions and integrations with other products, and a lot of improvements with Office 365 integration. So we'll look at some of those, as well as seeing how the Outlook integration is sort of been improved quite a lot and is much tighter at the moment, and anything Office 365 in general is much tighter to NAV. There is also some improvements with our Lexmark, or what's now the Kofax OCR integration. So we'll have a look at what that's been improved, so we can do vendor synchronizations with those now, as well as a lot of improved Dynamics CRM integration. So there already was a connector, but they've enhanced that quite a bit, and there's a lot more flexibility that you can do with that connector now to Dynamics CRM. There's a lot of talk around Power BI. I'm sure a lot of you have come across it, or maybe started using it already, I'm sure. So Power BI used to just be available in maybe just the role center previously in Dynamics NAV, but now we're seeing that role center available across all the different master records in product. And as we're saying, there's a lot of AI and Azure machine learning that's NAV is now able to access. So there's AI services that we will discuss and show how NAV is able to recognize pictures and from products or faces that you upload into the system, and is able to suggest to you the attributes of those particular pictures or photos that you are loaded into NAV. Okay, and these are just some of the features that are available. There's a lot of different things that have been improved in there. So things like user tasks, there's employee ledger entries. There's also additional improvements around the item charges. So previously we were only able to do things like by quantity and amount. We can now do it by volume and weight as well. There's automatic posting of our intercompany journals. There's posting group suggestions. There's a couple of really cool features that now are available in the product. So let's get into it and see exactly what we have available there. So I'll just go into my next slide, which is now going to be my product demo. So I'm going to start off within my Dynamics NAV web browser or web client. And we can see that Microsoft is spending a lot of time focusing on this particular web browser, because as we know, a lot of things are moving towards the cloud, and this is the direction that we're seeing a lot of more functionality coming into this web browser, and more people using the web browser client of NAV. So one of the first things I probably want to show you in this web browser client is the ability to customize the web browser. So previously we weren't able to do much customizations in the web browser, but now we are able to do that. So if I took us into, for example, a customer page and showed us the customer list here. So you can see already, as I talked about the Power BI integration, you can see that on the customer list, we now have access to, connect your customers with Power BI data directly. Yeah. But what I wanted to really show you is the ability and the flexibility we now have to change the screens just the same way, or in a similar way that we were able to do, or are able to do in the Windows client. So we have this new button available in the top left-hand side called the Designer. So if I click on this Designer from my customer list page, it takes me into a design view of the page. And when I'm in this design view of the page, I can click on More, which shows me now within this design view of the page, I can actually add fields or actions or different parts or additional pages to this web client view of the customer list. So for example, if I went in to add fields, So we can see that there's a number of different placed and a number of different ready fields. So the placed fields are fields that are already available, and the ready fields are fields that I can add now to my customer list page. So for example, if I wanted to add something like my customer posting group or credit limit, I can just simply drag and drop those fields in to the page, and you can see the system has started to add those in. Okay, and then to remove them as well, we can easily just take off these fields and say remove. Okay, so I don't want to see name 2 in there. Okay, we also see things like the freeze panes, which we didn't have in the web browser before. So we can easily just move the freeze panes over to wherever we want them by just clicking on the little design button there and set the freeze panes in there. So it makes it much more easy and much more flexible to actually design our web browser client of NAV. And once we're done with that, we can just close those, and the system has updated those. We do also have access once you're in here. When you stop designing, it'll ask you to save that particular view as what we call an extension in NAV. So before I go out of this and stop designing, I did also want to show you, as part of the design view of the web browser client in NAV, you can see that we're currently looking at this as a desktop view. But the system now also, or part of this designer view in the web client, does also allow us to see the detail, see what the application would look like in a different device. I can see a tablet view or a phone view by just clicking on one of those buttons. So by clicking on that, I can actually see what this data looks like in a tablet. And it's actually live data, so I'm not just looking at a screenshot. I can actually move it around and see what those different views look like. Okay, or to see that same data as a phone, I can actually put it in a phone view as well. I can actually look at this data as a phone. Okay, so it's actually really a nice way to actually design your pages, and when you're looking at the product, to make sure that your role centers or pages that you're exposing to devices for various users are basically as efficient as possible. Okay, so once you finish designing, you can stop designing, and as I said, it'll ask you to save it. I'm not going to save it this time. I'll just close that view out. Okay, so it's a nice improvement that we have within the web browser, and it's something that wasn't available, and people had been sort of wondering when we get that type of functionality in the browser. Some of the other functionality we have in the browser is the ability to actually preview our reports. So before, it was a little bit tricky to be able to preview reports in the browser, but now we have access to actually preview and print our reports directly from the browser. So if I clicked on this preview button, it actually takes me into a preview of the report, and from this preview, I'm able to play around with the preview. So I can fit to the width of my screen to and use my handbar to move around on different areas of the screen and focus on what I'm looking for. I am also able to obviously print this document directly, as well as even downloading the PDF as a file. So it gives us a lot more flexibility from our browser to use it as a full NAV client, because I can actually run all my reports directly out of the browser client now as well. All right. So that's some of the improvements we have within the web browser specifically. Some of the other just general improvements of the product as well that I'll take you through just a quick run through is, as I was saying, things like being able to do item charges by volume and weight, for example. So if I went into an existing sales order, so I'll just use my search box here, and I went to sales orders, and I open up a particular sales order. So this is one sales order that I actually had prepared with 2 line items and a charge item. So once we have our charge items in there here, I can actually go into to my line and look at my item charge assignment. And when we do our suggest item charge assignments, previously we were only able to suggest item charge assignments equally or by amount. But now we have access to actually item charge assigned by weight or by volume as well, which is a nice improvement that was missing from NAV for item charges. So that's quite a handy one in there as well. Okay, so that's on our sales orders and item charges. So I'll just escape back and take us back to our home screen. So one of the other nice features that have been added to the product as well is things like our user tasks. So user tasks are a task that can be a specific NAV tasks that can be assigned to a user account. So for example, in my user tasks that I have available here, I have things like, I have a user task that's been assigned to me to say I need to print my end of month statements for my customers. So I can see that this particular task is 60% complete, and they're currently set at all with a high priority. The reason why I have so many of them is because they've all been set with the recurring task to print, so that I print these towards, or I'm reminded to set up a reminder to go and action these user tasks towards the end of the month. So there's a due date on each of those tasks. So if I just go and edit any of those particular tasks and see what's involved in setting up a user task, or what is this user task about, it's saying email the end of month statements. It's assigned to me. That's my user account I'm currently logged in with. I've only done a few of them, so I've actually put in a percentage complete of 60%. And we can see this is tied to report number 116, which is my NAV statement report. So it's got a priority of high, and it's got a start date. And as I said, you can set the recurrence of them, and that's why I was seeing a list of 11 tasks that needed to be done. Once I want to action this particular task, I can go to the task item, and that actually triggers my report statement to be run. So I can run the statement, say that I've done that, and once I've done that, I can then mark my task as complete. Once the task is marked as complete, it populates the percentage to 100%, and then that'll drop out of my list. So instead of having 11 user tasks to be done, I'll see back on my dashboard or my role center now, and now I have 10 user tasks that are remaining to be done. So we can set up all these different tasks, and they can be assigned to either a report or can be linked to a specific page that you want the user to go and have a look at, if that's part of the user task that you want them to go and investigate. Okay. There's also other functionality that they've added to the product, so things like employee ledger entries. So it's a little feature in a little tool within the product that allows us to track our employees in NAV, but now we're able to do employee ledger entries as part of that as well. So in our employees within NAV, we now have access to, or be able to post employee ledger entries. Very similar to those of you that have used resources, are able to connect resources to resource ledger entries. So we've got the same functionality around employee ledger entries now as well. Some of the other improvements that have been made around the product for users as well is that NAV will now connect your user task directly to your user account, directly to the your salesperson code. So that makes it much easier when you for mobile device users are able to actually log into NAV and create sales orders or sales quotes, and the salesperson code is automatically attached or assigned to the user. So that makes it much quicker to actually process your documents in that way if the user account is directly linked to the salesperson or purchaser code. Right? The other improvements we talked about, or I mentioned briefly as well, was also the intercompany. So in our company information, NAV now has the ability to actually auto post our intercompany. Okay, so under our communication tab in NAV, we'll see that where we set up our intercompany partners and intercompany inbox and details, there's the ability to auto send the transactions. So we don't have to deal with the very cumbersome inbox, outbox of the intercompany process anymore. We can actually auto send transactions with this functionality that's now available in NAV 2018. Okay, so that's some of the improvements that we have over there. Some of the other ones that I wanted to discuss or show you is also the OCR connectivity that we have now available to synchronize our vendors. So we can look at that information via our services and extensions. So as part of our service connections, we have our OCR services. So these are all some of the services that are now available out of the box with NAV. So we have connections to our reserve bank, which allows us to get our currencies. So I think previously we were using Yahoo, but that hasn't really been working. So we're now using the reserve bank to actually get all our currency exchange rates connected and synchronized live in NAV. And as I said, we're talking about the OCR services. So with the OCR services, so once you connect your OCR service to automatically scan and read your AP invoices, we are able to do the master data sync. So we can enable this, and that'll allow NAV to send the vendors that are created or updated in NAV directly back to the OCR engine, so that we don't have to go and manage and update that vendor information in the online Lexmark or Kofax portal. So that's quite a nice improvement, and makes the data, makes this process a lot easier to manage. Okay. I mentioned as well that we also have a lot of these wizards that are available with the system. So things like your service connections to easily set up data within the system. But we can go in, and if we look at what's available in the assisted setup of NAV, so in the assisted setup, we can use the system to help us set up either the setup of extensions or even just general functionality in the product itself. So while we're still on extensions, if I go into the assisted setup, we can set up things like, migrating business data from Excel templates. The system will allow us to take us through a couple of wizards to do that. We can also do our approval workflows as well via here. So we can do wizards to actually set up approval workflows quite easily. So we can, if we run through this type of thing, it sort of takes us through a couple of steps of a wizard and says we want to turn on different types of approvals. And once we finish that, we can check the approval user setups to make sure that that's all configured the way we want it to be configured. And that's it. So it's just a couple of steps, and that's it. Your approval workflows are now enabled. So the backend functionality still has the same workflows that we may have been used to, but it's much easier to set those things up right now. So we can actually run through these types of wizards and actually set up a lot of different types of connections to, as we can see, Dynamics 365, connecting to your business Outlook, which I'll show you in a minute, as well as migrating business data, etc. And as I said, in addition to these assisted setups for connections and extensions, we also have assisted setup for just data to set up a new company, for example, or to set up just the general NAV application. So if I go into assisted setup for the general application, so migrating business data. So next, so we just allows you to import from Excel. So it allows you to create your Excel templates and then actually just populate those templates while you are, for customer templates, vendor templates, etc. And that'll allow us to easily create data and populate data into NAV quite quickly. Okay, so quite nice little wizards that are now available, and seems to be the direction Microsoft is going to actually allow users to easily set up the system. So, see if I can go in there. No, okay, so that's some nice features that we have available there. So one of the other ones we talked about there was the Outlook integration. So some of this was available in 2017, but as I said, there's continuous improvements around the way this is being done. So what I've got over here, I've actually got my NAV connected to my Office 365 account. And what we've got here is I've got my mailbox. This is my Office Online, my mailbox, and I've sent an email from my email account, and I've asked to check on this particular invoice. Now, because this email address is actually registered to a contact in NAV, what this is allowing me to do is within the system is actually show Dynamics NAV directly in my mail. So you can either do it in the mailbox here or on the right-hand side here as well, will also show. So probably just need to show this. So you can see that my user account is here, with this email address is actually showing me details from the Canon group, which is the customer this email is linked to, and I can see this data directly in my Outlook. So I can actually click on things here as well. So if I click into that, it'll show me the ongoing sales quotes for this customer. Go back, create new quotes, or create new information, or update information directly from my email inbox. So a really nice way to actually, interact with NAV is via Outlook now. So instead of having to jump out of different programs and jumping in and out of between your mail and your NAV, you can actually do this all directly from within Outlook. So one of the research and development that Microsoft have done is how much time people have spent switching tasks. So switching between mail, your ERP, your finance system, or whatever different systems you're using. So what they've said is that if we can surface a lot of this information directly into your mail, you don't have to spend time jumping around between applications. We can actually do all this directly from NAV itself. So if I went into new and wanted to create a new quote for this customer, it actually generate a new quote. It'll suggest what you want to, what it thinks you want to create a quote for. But if I say cancel, it'll allow me to actually start a brand new quote. So you can see it's a new quote, and I can actually type a quote for some new consulting services. Okay, so it's picked up consulting services there. Okay, so that's a new quote. And that's it. So once I've done that, that's actually now a quote that's available in NAV, and I can actually print that or whatever I need to do to send it out to the customer. So there's a lot of all this tight integration that we're now seeing directly in within NAV and what the other Office 365 products. Okay, and that extends all the way through to our other products such as Excel. So on my role center here, I've got functionality to export out some of my standard financial reports, so things like a balance sheet, income statement, directly into Excel. And once I've done that, it'll actually open up this document in Excel and allows me to then manage that document from Excel and actually send data back from Excel to NAV. So we can see that is available in things like our using Excel with a data connection. Okay, so if I connect this back to Excel, we can see that we can download this, and there's a Dynamics NAV function that, or add-in that pops up within Excel itself. Mine's not connected the way it's supposed to be, but essentially you'll see the NAV icons up here. You'll see the NAV data service connected to your database, and whatever data you've got in here, you can actually update this, and it'll send this back to NAV via Excel, which is quite a useful way to also look after your data, if that's more efficient for you. Okay, so that's using our Excel reports. So that's some of the functionality that we're seeing within the product itself. Some of the other things that we also are able to do is the things like bulk posting. So if I go into my sales orders or sales invoices, for example, again, so sales orders. So within the product, within NAV, if we wanted to bulk send, sorry, I think I need to do this from my just jumping back into my Windows client, because this function is available in the Windows client at the moment. So if I go to my sales orders, okay, so some of this bulk posting that we're able to do. So previously in NAV, if we selected documents, we weren't able to actually post those documents by what we've selected. We'd have to have used the batch post. And the batch post, while it's fine, it does force you to actually refine the documents that you want to post through. So you'd have to select the filters that you wanted to post to actually to post certain documents together. But in this sense, yeah, what I've done now is just randomly selected a couple of documents, and when I click the post button, the system will actually tell me I'm about to post 7 out of the 46 orders that are currently on screen. So it actually is only going to post those 7 documents that I've selected, which is a much better way or cleaner way to actually batch post or bulk post documents in the system. Okay, so that's some of the improvements there. There's also improvements around transfer orders as well. So when we're in transfer orders in NAV, we are able to actually, instead of being forced to use in-transit code, you can actually set up your system so that you don't need an in-transit code. The system will automatically default to a certain in-transit location when you're doing transfers of inventory. So that's another nice improvement, and also all to enable the system to be used more efficiently and faster. Okay. One of the other things we have is posting groups. So this is probably a little area that sort of gives a lot of people nightmares around how to set up posting groups in NAV, because they can be quite confusing. So posting groups in NAV are the way the system actually posts everything from the subledger back into GL accounts. So it does take a time to set up and a lot of time to understand for customers that are found as we do training. but what they've done now is they actually have highlighted the fields that are required for a particular setup. So here we can see I'm on a particular line for business posting group blank and product posting group retail, and it's suggested or said to me that I'll need to have a sales account and a purchase account to use that particular setup. So it highlights the fields that are required, but it does also allow us to suggest the accounts. So the system will look at, based on what other combinations are for blank and retail, or in this case, it'll look for other retail setups, and it will suggest to me what accounts to be put in there. So I can click on suggest, and you can see it's populated accounts that are similar, where it's found similar matching accounts for retail. And it's just a suggestion. Obviously, we can change those if we wanted to, if it hasn't put in the right suggestions for us. So this is another improvement that we have within the product for posting groups. Okay, so that's some of the improvements or some of the functionality that we have within the system, just that I'm going to show you as a product. But I do also have a couple of other slides just to show you some of the other functionality that Microsoft have added. So just briefly, just to run through some of this. So I'll just jump back into my slides and show you that, you know, there is some information around, or a lot better integration around how Microsoft has connected Dynamics NAV to Dynamics 365. So this is a accounts screen where we can see, before integrating actual data from CRM back to NAV, it allows us to show us a little preview. So here we can see Dynamics NAV 365 for sales, and it's what it's done now just by, you know, surfacing information from our CRM product. It's showing us this is our CRM accounts and customers that are available, and it gives you the option to then create those customers in NAV if we wanted to. So we don't have to always sync all customers or all accounts from our CRM back to NAV. We can actually show these as suggestions and then decide whether we want to synchronize them or not. So it's a lot better and a lot more flexible to be able to do that. Some of the other integrations or synchronization that we have with CRM is we are able to set up synchronization jobs. So in this case here, we can see just like how our NAV job queue works to trigger actions to happen within the system. In this case here, we've got some synchronization jobs that are happening, that are synchronizing contacts, synchronizing units of measure, currency, resources, etc. So we can see exactly what's been synchronized in NAV and when, and what happened, which direction it went to as well. So there's tos and froms in terms of how the synchronization will work. So it gives us a lot more visibility into how that synchronization is working than what we previously had. Okay, there's also, this is one of my favorite ones in terms of the integration, is the integration table mappings. So previously we had to sort of do this outside of NAV, and it became quite tricky to actually work out, you know, how to filter different mappings between CRM and NAV. But with this integration table mappings, we're able now to choose exactly which integration mappings we want. We can choose the direction, whether it's bidirectional or to the integration table, from the integration table, and we can actually pick the fields that we want to integrate through. So from CRM contact to a NAV contact in this case, you know, and we can actually choose exactly which way, choose which fields the system will populate to, as well as even creating filters. So we can filter the information before it actually comes across as well. So if I only want contacts of a certain type, or only want pricing within a certain date range, etc., I can actually choose which fields and the data to synchronize when I'm going through the product in that way as well. So there's a lot of really nice things to work with and play with in terms of this integration. Okay, sorry, give me a second. I also just want to show you some of the other improvements as we talked about with the cognitive services. So some of that information is also available where we can actually, as I said, load a picture into NAV, and that picture will allow us to actually then analyze the picture using the Azure cognitive services and suggest to us exactly what attributes should apply to the picture that we've loaded. So on the item card, for example, we have a function called analyze the picture. So after we've loaded a picture, it'll actually then suggest to us what it's found. And it gives us a little bit of a confidence of what it thinks of those particular attributes. So it's picked up that, it's picked up 20% of wheels, or 21.92% of wheels, and, leaning, transport, and bicycle seems to be picked up 100%. So we've got an action to perform there, and we can say use as a category, use as an attribute, or blacklist if it's an attribute that we don't want to ever see or be picked up when it picks up these types of pictures. So this is all via the API services that are now available in NAV. And just to show you the service that it actually uses online is I'll take you to a little quick Azure picture that I've actually uploaded it in here, and we can see how the system actually tracks all the different attributes, and it gives us those confidence levels and allows us to then choose which ones we want. So I've actually just loaded this directly into the URL, but this obviously can be done in NAV when you configure it and set it up. So this is a picture of a bicycle, and once you submit this, it brings back all this information. So it tells me all this information that I can then use in NAV as attributes. It tells me this is the description of the bicycle, these are the tags, that's the confidence percentages, and dimensions. All this type of information is available directly as attributes that we can then use in NAV. So this is the Azure service that is actually used to analyze pictures. And as I said, this can be used to analyze pictures of products, items, as well as faces and people as well, that can actually suggest to us attributes about those contacts if we're using it for specific user accounts or contact accounts. Okay, so that's some of our machine learning that we have there. So that brings us to the end of the functionality that I wanted to talk about today within NAV that's new in our 2018 version.